Yeah, so welcome. Thank you. Yeah, tell me about yourself. What do you do exactly? I'm so sorry. You are,
I am a broker and I do pretty much help predominantly people in my community start their own business. And what I mean by brokers, I help people get licensed in the area of financial services. And I do pretty much the sponsoring as well as for all the state and federal licenses. And I basically just train one person at a time. So that's really what I love about it because I get to work with each individual, get to know them. I really believe that everybody has a talent, and it's just about bringing that out in somebody, right? Some people just other like social butterflies. There's people that like more like technical stuff, and everybody has a different drive. But I believe like once you kind of bring everyone together, that's what teamships do for you. You're able to just build and kind of get people to the next level, and then you help yourself get to the next level.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have some mentors that always tell me that. They're saying like if you help someone else's dream come true first, then in turn, like your dream will come true faster for you as well. Because the more you help, the help comes back to you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Definitely
yeah.
when it comes to business, if you're really trying to build, you're never
Mhm.
going to build it alone. There's always going to, no matter if you look like a one man person, right? There's always a team behind every amazing thing that happens. And that's really what I'm seeing right now, that I'm also in the building phase of my business. I'm helping myself build a business while at the same time helping others build theirs.
Gotcha. So then, do you work with a lot of banks then? Because you said you are in financial services. Does that mean you have a lot of ties to like banks all over like the area?
So necessarily when it comes to banks, when it comes to helping people get into their first home or possibly looking to maybe pay the house off sooner and refinance, not to actually throw someone back into more debt, but actually bettering a situation. So if a person owes maybe 25 years on their mortgage and they're trying to maybe pay it off in 20 years, our goal is always to pretty much help somebody get out of debt sooner. So with that, I only work with one lender, which is right now actually the biggest lender pretty much in all of California. I would say all of the U.S., which is Quicken Loans, and they're obviously the department that does all of our home loans is a Rocket Mortgage. So it's called Rocket Mortgage because the whole point of the program is to be able to pretty much pay out that debt as quickly as possible versus a conventional loan that you would get at a conventional bank. Most likely you're looking at those really long 30, sometimes even 40-year loans to pay off a property.
Mhm.
So with us, it's pretty much we pretty much do everything where we do a blueprint, kind of like when you're building a house, right? You need a
Yeah.
blueprint. So we don't just do like loans. We do the whole blueprint of your financial portfolio and make sure everything runs together. So you're able to, get out of debt, retire, save money, buy the dream house or take the dream vacation. So, but yeah, Quicken Loans it is.
Oh, okay, that's cool. So has there been like any interesting stories that like, I mean, obviously like especially in businesses, you always hear about some kind of crazy story happening. Like with us, like I know we've had employees do some not so nice things, and so I was curious about it with you because I know you work so hands on with some people. I was to wondering if you have any stories that you're just like, oh, like well, this happened and this was.
Well, I mean, particularly like our when it comes to like our business, it's a little hard, I guess, because the only way that you can actually get terminated from our business is by doing something unethical. And I always say, like, companies, it's not that companies not perfect, it's people are not perfect, right? And I'm sure that people make mistakes, but essentially, I don't have any like crazy stories, right? When it comes to that, maybe like in the training phase, maybe just someone, not like maybe. I don't know, being maybe successful in the beginning because maybe they lack like the people skills. But I mean, actually, to even like work with us, we do require an FBI background check. So that is really the way we're really able to prevent from that from happening. And ultimately, if they do something unethical, it's normally not. It's actually the state of California that will terminate your license. So that's why. I mean, and I'm pretty sure there's probably been crazy stories, but I have more like I have stories, but they're not mostly on the unethical side. It's just been like crazy stories about clients, mostly clients. On the other hand, I would say
Okay,
clients
yeah,
versus
yeah. Trust me, I know.
yeah.
Especially when you work with people, so much stuff always goes down, and and then the more people you bring in, the more it tends to like potentially might happen, it might not happen. So then, how'd you get started in this field then, with all the financial services and stuff?
So basically, the I've always been interested in business. I just didn't know what type of business I wanted to do. But what attracted me to the business is pretty much back in 2005. I don't know if you remember, there was like a huge recession where a lot of people were losing homes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So my parents were actually going through a very big financial hardship where they actually thought that they were going to lose the house they had recently purchased. And I just remember, kind of looking for guidance. I was in middle school and just kind of going with guidance with my middle school teacher. He was my science teacher. And I said, hey, I think my parents are about to lose their first home. We've only had the house for a couple of years, but it looks like they sold my dad a bad loan. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and during that time, there was a lot of like Hispanics that were taking advantage of, like, it just seems like
Mm-hmm.
everyone bought a house and within a few years, everybody was like out of a house. So
Mm-hmm.
pretty much like there we were going. And I remember my teacher said, hey, you know what? My brother's a financial planner. And basically what they do is instead of going for a bank for help, because banks normally will sell you a product. If they can't sell you something or profit from something, then they're like, hey, we can't help you. Like if they can't find a way to make money themselves out of helping you, they're not going to help you just because they want to help you. Right. So financial planners, on the other hand, are like the advisors. They kind of look at the bigger picture and say, okay, these are the pieces that we have. This is what we can move around. And this is the plan, and let's execute. Right. So that's kind of like the difference between a bank and a planner. Right. So I sat down with my teacher's brother. He actually came to my house and they built the blueprint for my parents. And they were like, hey, these are some of the options that we're able to have. And this is kind of like the blueprint. And if we can execute this, there's a chance we're going to save the house. There's a chance that we're going to be able to better your situation. And actually that did happen. And when it happened, it saved the house, it saved our lives. And pretty much they still live in that property today. So instead
Oh
of my
wow.
parents becoming a statistic of kind of like, just the economy, like
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of like, hey, like there is a way to figure things out. And that's kind of where my passion for helping people and living through the situation kind of started.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I totally understand. Wow, being in middle school and already thinking about I was amazed because I remember and me being in middle school and having kind of the same thing where my parents bought a house and they actually lost it though is the downfall of it. They actually lost it, but a couple of years later they ended up getting a better house. So I mean, it worked out in the end and everything. But yeah, for sure. I know. Yeah, with the crash, that's yeah, that's such a sad thing. Is like people that were buying houses and loans that were way too big and stuff like that. I'm curious with that. Like, when you saying that you are always interested in business, does that mean that you were also starting other businesses, or did you know since middle school that experience that you're like, this is it, this is my business?
No, so I've always been in business. Like my family, pretty much everyone since like my grandma, she used to own a restaurant in Mexico, like one of the really popular restaurants. And everyone in my family kind of had like their own little business. My dad, he has owned like a plumbing company, still does. So I always knew I wanted to do something. So my first initial business off the bat was a boutique. I wanted to go into the clothing business, and I actually still have it. I've had it for 10 years now. I started this project like right out of high school, a little bit right out of high school, and I got a job first like at a flea market, kind of learning the aspects of selling and talking to people and kind of just finding that common ground. And then eventually I was like, hey, I would definitely like to start my own like clothing store, right? And I
Hmm.
did that, and I have it. It's up and running in East LA. It's been a little bit over 10 years. It's definitely a community-based business where it's affordable to the community. We're seasonal. We carry different stuff, and I thought it was a good business. But after a while, I just kind of felt like I just wanted to do something different. And then just pretty much just through reading books and having different mentors, I kind of realized um, that I went back to like square A when I really thought about like, hey, like the reason why all this was able to come true is because someone came back and saved the situation my parents were in. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Someone saved that business from going bankrupt, that business from, because it wasn't just houses that were crashing in 2005. It was, again, a lot of businesses, right? So I
Hmm.
was like, so I just wanted to do something more meaningful. And I just thought like, hey, like I just really want to educate people in the process of instead of just selling them, right? Like a bank, you go there and
Hmm.
they sell you a product, a bank account, a credit card, or you know what I'm saying. And then after that's pretty much it. Like nobody really has that relationship with the banker where they're doing it for your best interest, right? So I was like,
Hmm.
if I could just find a way to come back and help others in a significant way, like that's what I would want to do. And it would always be like you can't really own a bank, right? That you can't be
Hmm.
like, well, I like to get a Wells Fargo franchise. But
Yeah.
I did was able to find out that you can actually get licensed and build the same plans and have access to the same programs to help other people. And I always thought like if I go forward, I'm going to do it in the LA area where there's a lot of awareness that needs to be brought up in this field. I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of our community is just, we're trained to be that guy to run the warehouse, but not own the warehouse. We're trained to be the guy to cut hair, but not own the salon. You know what I'm saying? We're taught to be the guy to sell houses, but not the owner of the real estate company. So that's when I thought, you know what, like I want to work like on my business, not in my business. And that's kind of how I was like money is pretty much behind everything. So if I can get and shape in people's financial ability, they have more options. And that's kind of how I got started with this.
Wow, that's great. So then with that too is where do you see the business going though for you, especially because I know you work a lot with financial. Are you looking into like building out more stuff in West LA? Are you looking to employ more people in your field or?
So yeah, so the vision is basically right now, I'm still working on a couple more licenses that I would need to actually open a physical building. And the thing about it is, right now I'm working in an office and I'm working with partners, right?
Mhm.
But by next year, obviously with this whole COVID, it kind of put like a, stop to a lot of like things. But you always want to come out stronger from the pandemic, right? You want to bring more
Mhm.
value. So I've been like taking the time to actually study to make sure I have those licenses by next year. I do see myself opening an office in particularly in Boyle Heights, East LA area, where I
Mhm.
feel that's where we need the most help, because a lot of like the other cities, Pasadena, Long Beach, a lot of these cities, like they seem to have a little bit more guidance, just more of
Mhm.
everything. So, um, and with the office, aside of us doing financial planning, I'm gonna incorporate, which is what I'm already doing, is a basically like a 101 orientation class on the fundamentals of money, of what you should know if you're ready
Mhm.
to start a business, if you're, starting your first job, how money works, how your paycheck works. Because I feel like a lot of us just go into the world and then you kind of
Mhm.
figure it out along the way. So, yeah, that's what I see myself doing, opening up an office and then pretty much incorporating pretty much classes that are going to be available for free for the community to come and learn about business, finance, building a business, and even building people skills.
Do you ever see yourself putting this somewhere else though too, like maybe in like Arizona or something like that? Because I know as much as like there's a lot of people here too in LA that need it, especially people all over the country that need it too. Are you thinking about Is that even more long term too? Is like because I know next year your 1 year goal is the office, but like say
Yeah.
10 years from now, is that like the long term goal?
Oh, definitely. So the beauty about the partners that I work with is that they're actually licensed in all of the 50 states,
Oh,
including Puerto Rico, Alaska, Hawaii, and we're also in Canada. So all of our stuff
okay.
comes English, Spanish, and French. So
Mhm.
definitely, the key to actually being successful, yeah, I can see myself having an office, but once I'm able to train a team, right, and then obviously my goal would definitely be to expand because I'm actually able, thanks to Zoom, which is why our business is doing really well. Thanks to Zoom, I'm actually able to train anyone in the 50 states. So I
Mhm.
actually have people that are in my team that like live in New York, right? And I help them
Mhm.
get licensed because I pretty much, like I said, all of our partners are here in all of the 50 states. And I have people that are working in New York. I have clients from literally Nevada, Arizona, just like, and literally I could be on a Zoom appointment with you right now here, right, in
Mhm.
California. And 20 minutes from now, I can be helping someone out in Vegas without having
Mhm.
to drive, without having to waste gas. So the Zoom really was a big game changer for our business because it was pretty much, they say time is money,
Yeah.
and traffic time. And imagine having to have a conference with a client. It's just not the same when I feel when you do like more of a physical meeting, it
Mhm.
brings more value to what you bring to the table. So
Mhm.
that was thanks to Zoom. That's definitely in the plans. And there's people that's actually already doing that. So I'm kind of happy that I'll be following people that actually are already on that, part of building their business in other states.
Mhm.
So I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot of people with the pandemic also in their business that actually moved to a different state and they're pretty
Mhm.
much starting from scratch because now they know like with Zoom, you could be training an agent, helping a client all within an hour.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that too, with COVID because I know especially with the businesses that I'm in, they were doing well, but I mean with COVID, it kind of helped my business a lot more. It gave us essentially government funding to keep our businesses open. It kind of was like, hey, we want you guys to stay open, so here's money, and we're not going to charge you to return it, like giving us government grants, like the PPP and stuff like that. And I was wondering, I was like, has COVID affected your business? Because I know you were talking about it a little bit. Like Zoom is definitely killing it with you, but were you like using anything else besides like that, like maybe social media? Because I know, especially with us, social media is really, really important.
So for me, yes, definitely. Well, surprisingly, our business actually had the biggest year of all time through COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and it's because I just don't do financial planning. I do so many other services that entail, um, you know, protect income protection, which is a big one, right? Which is basically life insurance, which is I think the GoFundMe of our community, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
like to bring awareness and say, hey, like we are the biggest consumers. If instead of maybe spending $40 on Starbucks every month, maybe you can put $30 away and just buy something small for you so that you're protected and you kind of have that taken cover. I feel like as adults, that's part of being responsible, right? You
Mm-hmm.
see, we are actually we're considered middle market, but the income market is actually they're the biggest consumers of everything. Like basically make it happen every day for Starbucks. We make it happen every day for Nike. We make it happen every single day, right? That there's a
Mm-hmm.
product coming out. We're the first in line to get it. We're the first in line to be like, hey, look at this phone. I just got,
Mm-hmm.
the 12, and you know what I'm saying? So I feel like with COVID and a lot of people passing away, I think life insurance was something that brought a lot of awareness to our business. And our company's been doing that for a very long time. So it actually exploded our business, which was pretty crazy. As far as like the PPP loans and stuff like that, I'm actually not too familiar actually with
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the help that's out there.
Yeah.
Um, But I feel like that's something that actually in the last couple of days I just started doing research because I've had people ask me about it and I'm not too informed about it. And I've actually
Mm-hmm.
been seeing on social media like a lot of celebrities basically give out information to their communities about these loans, which, like I said, like honestly, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too educated on the subject, but I know that that helps out there, and I
Yeah.
know that it is helping mostly like a lot of like people that are suffering like paying rent on physical buildings and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the small
Yeah.
mom and pop restaurant and like that art gallery, right? And just like all these businesses that were out there. But
Mm-hmm.
no, definitely like COVID actually brought more opportunity and more awareness to our business. Not that it was a bad thing, a good thing that COVID happened, but
Yeah.
we were also able to be there for those families because I know personally, like in my office, we've paid a couple of death claims, multiple death claims since COVID. So
Mm-hmm.
also seeing the other side of the business of actually being there financially for a family, that kind of made a big difference. Because right now with COVID going on and social distancing, it's kind of hard to have a car wash for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to have like like a taco nightstand to raise money and have like 60 people show up, right? It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, people are passing from COVID, so it's not like the smartest thing to say, hey, let's have a rally. And it's so really these options were like, hey, you know what, like it's more affordable than you think, and if you just take 20 minutes of your time to learn about it, it's going to make a world of difference if something were to happen.
If you could teach like some of these newer people, especially like people in our community, like Latin community, whether they're from here or anything, is there anything that you'd want to teach them starting early? Because I know, especially for entrepreneur minded people, a lot of them always say like, if I could teach my like younger self something, it would be this. Is there anything like, because I know you love to give back, so I was wondering, like, what's the one thing that you would want to teach them, like the younger generation?
And this is pretty much something I would teach and give back regardless of the business that you're starting. The biggest thing you can invest in is yourself. What I mean by that is you need to literally find a mentor or a coach that has a track record, right? A track record meaning that, you know what I'm saying? Like they did it, they're doing it, they're still being successful, whether they're retired or not. Just because someone's retired doesn't mean that they're no longer successful, right? Just kind of like Michael Jordan's retired. That doesn't mean he's no longer successful because he doesn't play basketball. But it's the track record, right? That basically says, hey, if I wanted to learn from someone, sometimes I feel like people make the mistake of confusing going to school and getting a degree in business is going to teach me, what I need for
Yeah.
business, which in reality, that's not the case. Finding the right mentor is actually what's going to bring you success, right? You're not going to go ask for example, a friend or a family member that's been working at a job for 30 years how to start a business, right? Because that
Mm-hmm.
that's that's even though we love our family, right? You really have to go out there and make sure that you find the right mentorship, because getting the wrong advice when it comes to business can basically just blow someone out the water. Like, hey man, this
Mm-hmm.
isn't for me, right? But when you have that mentor that says, hey, it's okay that you fell, it's okay that you failed, this is what I did, this is what I did, right? And you have that
Mm-hmm.
and that's really what, like, I would suggest people would read in. If you don't have like the ability to have like a mentor off the bat, there's so many books, and if you don't like to read, there's so many podcasts now and audios that talk about how to be successful, or they interview just people in business, right? Because if you look at all these celebrity nows or athletes, when they come on podcasts, sometimes they don't even really talk about being an athlete. They talk about these businesses that they're investing on the side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, mentorship is, I think, is like the number one, followed by self-development. And that's what I mean, invest in yourself instead of buying, the latest and greatest shoes. Like, you can
Mm-hmm.
literally buy a course that can teach you the fundamentals of business or the fundamentals of people skills, how to get somebody to like you in 90 seconds or less, right? Think and Grow Rich. There's so many books out there that pretty
Mm-hmm.
much teach you how to be successful, right? So I think that's the number one thing. Because if you're going out there just like, and you're taking a leap of faith and you have like no direction and you're going to go get mentorship from your friend who works at like, a job you don't even like, right? The
Mm-hmm.
chances of, and then like the worst thing is like, people don't jump because they're afraid to fail. And if you're
Yeah.
around the right people, they know that failure is what brings you to success. Safety and comfort is what makes you complacent, what makes you stay at that job, what makes you not want to
Mm-hmm.
jump, what makes you say, oh, I'm good, right? So
Yeah.
so there are two different worlds that you're going to be looking at. And if you're trying to build a business and you're like the Matrix, you have the red pill and the blue pill.
Yeah.
If you're just trying to just jump in there and you're going to go ask, the wrong person advice, like it might make you feel like, hey, you know what, I tried it, it's not for me, right?
Yeah.
So that's probably like the biggest thing when it comes to business, like invest in yourself. If you don't have access to a coach, there's podcasts, there's books, there's audios, there's literally
Mm-hmm.
even now there's like live coaching sessions, right?
Yeah.
Where you can like read magazines, Forbes magazine, Fortune 1000, like read articles on successful people, right? So
Mm-hmm.
just that's really the key. Study successful people because they have their answer to
Yeah.
things that that are you're really gonna
Yeah.
encounter in the beginning of your business.
Like with that is like find out what you want to do, like what you enjoy doing too, because like then it's not necessarily going to be a job, but it's definitely going to be more bearable. And like you, like I always think about, especially with work, it's like, hey, would you rather work at a job that you enjoy, or would you rather work at a job that you hate? And most people are going to be like, well, I'd rather work at a job I enjoy. And then they go and then they work at like what is it, Wall Street for like however long, and they don't like it at all, but they're like, but I'm gonna take this, but then instead they'd rather, open up a coffee shop somewhere. And like there's nothing wrong with money or the way that we make money or stuff like that, but I always think about like how much do you want to make, what do you want to make, and who do you want to make it with. I always think about those things for me personally, because like you've been in it, like you've been with it partners and stuff like that. Sometimes you don't like working with people. Have you ever had that, like where you don't necessarily like working with someone that you're in there with inside your business?
I've only experienced that when I had a job, because I felt like at some point in your life, you're going to work with people. Doesn't matter what you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless obviously you were born blessed with millions of dollars and you can open up your companies and it doesn't matter. But if you're just the average Joe climbing up the ranks, I've only experienced that when I've had a job, because I feel like when it comes to a job, you have to understand that people are only going to train you enough not to take their job, right? They're only going to train
Mm-hmm.
you enough not to be replaceable, because that's normally
Yeah.
what happens in corporate America. And I did work for a very prestigious company before I, started my business for 7 years, big corporation, right? And climbed up the ranks really quick, right? Took me about
Mm-hmm.
5 years to actually establish like a really good position within that company. And then you started to realize that you're referring back to your analogy from Wall Street, like sometimes I think time is a little bit more valuable than a paycheck, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then the time is also reflected upon the people that you spend the most time with. So your job kind of like becomes like your second family, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like they can be paying me really, really good money, but I'm over here hanging around with this guy that, or this female, right? That, in reality, like I know they don't want to see me succeed because I might be taking their job in the next 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or people in corporate America also sometimes have like a sense of entitlement, right? Like just because they
Mm-hmm.
have seniority, just because they have, they've been there for a while, or they know the boss, or they go bring that coffee every morning for the boss, right? And then it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, if you don't want to play you don't want to play that game, then there's certain things that just makes it unpleasant for you to start going to work or spending time with people. So I think that's literally the reason why people take the risk of being self-employed and jumping into something they like to do, even if they make less money, but it's
Mhm.
just more having ownership of your time and not having someone tell you what to do, or who's if you can show up to your daughter's play, or you know what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
sometimes people say, hey, I rather just you know just wash cars for a living and not have anybody tell me what to do, right? So, and I think that's the reason why more people, especially here in the US, kind of just jump and say, hey man, I want to start my business. I don't care if it's a coffee shop, I don't care if it's selling fruit, or whatever it is, than having to be at that job where it's just constant pressure. And like I always say, there's there's 7 days in a week. Why only live for two, right? It's ridiculous when you really think
Exactly.
about it.
Yeah. With COVID and all that going on, do you think we're ever gonna have a sense of normalcy though? Because I know like a lot of people are saying like, oh yeah, this is when people, fake business owners are gonna show up because they're gonna be like, hey, I'm gonna go take a job instead of work on a passion. And I'm curious with it, and then within your field, because you have a lot of people that are more like, for sure right now with COVID, everybody's a little bit more concerned about like, where's my next paycheck coming from? Where's my next dollar coming from? Do you think that they're gonna stop caring once this is over?
Well, referring back to your normality question,
Yeah.
I feel we're not going back to normal. I really feel that in it that our economy as a whole, and as people, we've definitely entered a different era, right? So it's kind of like, as much as we like horses, we're not going back to riding horses to work. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things that happen that make a permanent change, and I think that this is where we're going. And when it comes to business, it's crazy the way that works, because when it comes to business, a lot of businesses, especially big corporations, they realize that they didn't need as much employees as they had, and that
Mm-hmm.
there's people that are willing to work double just to keep the job. Like, hey, now you're gonna work for two, but you need to pay those bills. So, do you want the job or do you not want the job? Right. So I feel like there's a huge advantage when it comes to corporations, because even a lot of restaurants. I have a friend that owns a restaurant, and he says, you know what, like my traffic is down by 20%, but because I laid off like over 60% of my employees, my overhead is literally like way less. So they were like, I kind of like it like this. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
traffic is down by 20%, but my overhead just went down by 60%. Right. So
Yeah.
now you have people that are willing to kind of like, you're hearing more like, you're getting paid a little less, or now you're kind of doing a two man's job now, like you're picking up the
Mm-hmm.
phone, and you're like the server, and you're like doing this, right? So when it comes to business, I feel like you know somehow it benefits corporations. They always end up somehow like coming up on top, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to like small businesses, I feel like a lot of small businesses, unfortunately, if they didn't have like you know enough money saved, unfortunately, I'm sure, I don't know, maybe I think you would be a great asset if you can educate people on these loans that I think can help them out, right, through
Yeah.
the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as when it comes to our business, I've actually had a bigger uh turnaround, because there's people, they're saying, hey, I looked at that description of the job, I'm not down. 15 bucks an hour, I'm not down, right? So if you're offering me an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to get licensed, and you're offering me a career versus a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 2020. Everything already happened. I'd
Yeah.
rather just take thought on myself and see if I can go pass a state board exam and actually get licensed and make, you know, decent money than to go work for Amazon or to go work for, you know, Kohl's warehouse, right? Like I
Yeah.
think people at this point, like I'm like, hey man, have a little more faith in yourself. Take the time to invest in yourself. If you just pass this small state board exam, you can literally make 3 or 4 times what you can make at a job, right? There's always the contractor and the labor, right? The guy
Mm-hmm.
that hires you to build the house and the men that are actually building the house, right?
Yeah.
So in my business, it's like you always have like the brokers and the agents, right? The brokers
Mm-hmm.
that have the license that make it happen, and then the agents that are out there just waving the sign, come in here, you know, get you know, answering phones, or you know. So what does, like, what my focus in my business is to develop brokers, not just an agent that doesn't have a license that's going to be picking up a phone. So
Mm-hmm.
I tell them, hey, and which is why I'm seeing way more growth in my business, because I'm like, dude, take a chance on yourself. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? You don't pass the test, you go back to a job, it's gonna be there. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be there. I
Mm-hmm.
promise you, it's gonna be there. So just you know, have a little more faith in yourself, and that's really helped me grow my business, because I feel like what people need right now is a sense of saying, hey man, like 2020 happened, you know, like let's believe in ourselves, let's dream a little bit, like let's not
Mm-hmm.
like just say, hey man, the world's coming to an end, we lost everything, like, you know, like you have to be able to dream. And there's a lot of people that after they lost their job, they actually said, hey, maybe I can actually do something that I like. My biggest fear was
Mm-hmm.
losing my job, and I lost it, and I'm still here. So the worst
Yeah.
is over with, right?
Yeah, it already
So
happened.
it already happened. So out of this pandemic, I think people should take the time to come out of it, because the year's not over.
Mm-hmm.
Add value to yourself. You
Yeah.
want someone to value you more? Add value to yourself. Invest in yourself so that you're able to bring to the table, you know, actual value, not bring to the table like a package from Amazon.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Most
maybe people are,
definitely.
so I'm like, hey man, like this is a time where you're this is a reset. Like you're able to dream again, and maybe you're
Yeah.
gonna, you know, maybe you don't want to do financial services forever, but I know you don't want to be working for Walmart. I'm like,
Yeah.
so like at this point, choices are limited. You have to go where the money's at, and if this is something that a license can allow you to make more money, spend more time with your family, and you don't have to be the laborer. You can actually be a contractor, right?
Yeah.
And put negotiations on the table, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why not pick that over the job application?
Yeah.
So that's really what I think. And I think, you know, 2020 is not over. People still have the time to say, hey, what's a plan B that I can do? At the end of the day, plan A is a job. It's always going to be there. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can get unemployment, you can get this, you can get all these resources. But
Mm-hmm.
what am I going to bring 2021 to the table? How am I going to
Yeah.
come out of it just being a better person, bringing more value to society, bringing more value to my family?
Yeah. That's so true for sure. Yeah, like with the job is like it happened. Like when you were so afraid of losing your job. Side note, you lost your job. Now this is the time to do these things, and it's so great because yeah, like when you're talking about Amazon, like yeah, it's crazy though because Amazon is killing it.
Yeah,
Like
they broke their first trillion
yeah,
during the
like
COVID.
they're killing it. It was like so interesting when you said that. It's like yeah, you could either pull up in the new car or you can pull up in the Amazon van to pick them up to drop off the things. And it's funny though because yeah, like especially in so many
And we're
situations,
supposed
there's
to be in a recession, mind
yeah,
you, that we're supposed to be in a recession, but Amazon broke a trillion. So
yeah,
see, the thing is that the money's not gone. The money's just not. Money follows greatness, right? So
yeah,
if you chase the mighty dollar, you're always going to be chasing it, right?
hmm
But when you're in a position to bring value, money chases you, right?
yeah,
So if we're in a recession, I don't understand how like Amazon broke a trillion, right? The money's
hmm
there. It's just going to someone else's pocket, right? So you
yeah,
just have to make sure that you're on the right side of the story here, you know?
yeah,
Right now that the economy is down, people that are investors, look at all the properties that they were able to purchase at a very affordable price,
yeah,
right? and
Mm-hmm.
and that's the reason why you're not supposed to be ready for a recession because there's an emergency. You're supposed to be ready for a recession because things go on sale. This is the time
Yeah,
for you to
exactly.
invest. This is the time for you to put more money in the stock market. And then they're like, people are like, oh my God, the stock market's crashing. Don't put your money in the stock. What are you talking about? The stocks are low. They're on sale, right?
Yeah.
Like Apple
Mm-hmm.
split, right? They went from having like a four, five, $600, stock to being $121, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
like there's so many things that for the right person, it's the right time,
Mm-hmm.
right? For the person that didn't have a plan B,
Yeah.
like there's a saying that says what you do in the good times, it's a reflection of what will happen to you in the bad times, right? So if during
Yeah.
the good times you were out there working on yourself, you were out there still killing yourself instead of consistently being like, oh, I'm going to the lake this weekend and I'm having a Vegas
Mm-hmm.
getaway, right? That was the good times. Well, what you were doing in the good times is going to be a reflection of what happens to you when you're in the bad times, right?
Yeah.
So I really feel like and like I said, right now it's still not over. People are in a
Mm-hmm.
great position to change their mind and go from job thinking to this is my chance to start a business. This is my chance
Mm-hmm.
to this and that. And the beauty about my business is that it doesn't have overhead, right?
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
all you need is a phone or a computer or a laptop. You have a license. You're able to help a client. You don't need to rent an office. You don't need to drive anywhere. And everyone knows that the first 3 years, what kills a business is just having that crazy overhead, which is what in essentially knocked out all the businesses right now that were small businesses. It was the
Mm-hmm.
overhead.
I know with us, like sometimes fast growth can be scary and it can be dangerous because if you get like, say, you break 10 million or you break $1 million, because we're hitting about six figures right now. I think we're getting close to that. And I was like, and my partner, he was in a situation where he was breaking. They were getting ready to break $1 million in revenue a yearly. But the thing was is that like with fast growth, sometimes if you don't have the right person in the situation, it messes up your business and it destroys your business because sometimes like we're especially in any kind of business and the people are the ones that matter the most. Like people are the ones that are either going to help you grow or take you down, especially in those things. And I was wondering too with that, is there anything that you missed now that like we're in this new time? Like, is there anything you missed about like being able to go grab coffee with your clients? Is there anything like grabbing dinner with potential meetings? Is there anything that
Oh,
you're
definitely.
missing?
Definitely. I think like the biggest thing that a lot of us missed, we're humans and it's scientifically proven that the whole, the way we're built, there's like literally, in our subconscious, there's like, things that ultimately, uh, you know, everything is about connection, everything, right? So, even, we have the need to connect with other people, which is the reason why social media is so big, right? Because all you're
Hmm.
doing is you're connecting with people. You're connecting with people. You're following people that relate to you. You're following people because, hey, I like that guy. He dresses. He's all, yeah, I like the way he dresses. I'm gonna follow this guy, right? And that's how influencers were built, right? It's
Hmm.
all about common ground, commonality. So I think like social media, COVID made us it was a reality check for a lot of people where we're like, hey, like now I think coming from this, we're gonna appreciate the little things, like the little things like being able to invite my client for a coffee or saying, hey, let me get you, dinner. Congratulations on this milestone you achieved, with XYZ situation. And I think that yeah, definitely I miss being able to have that connection. And there's still people out there that are going through it, that are quarantined. I mean, I have family members myself that like are going through a quarantine right now. That and I feel like um, the good thing about it is we got a lot of time to reflect on ourselves and what's really important. But I think that coming out of this, we're going to definitely be more appreciative of just being able to hang around with people, just and it's all about connections. And I think like that human connection is so essential, which is why in my business, right, and your business as well, when you really think about it, like we're pretty much, our product is people.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially, it doesn't matter what business you are. So that's why when people say like, oh, I want to start a business for this, or I want to start a business for that, like your product is people, no matter where you go. That's,
Mm-hmm.
your product is people. Like if you have a podcast, your product is people. If you, what I'm doing is bettering someone's lifestyle, right? Lifestyle equates to people, right? So if I can get
Mm-hmm.
you in a better situation, if you're able to save more money, maybe you're able to buy that car, maybe you're able to, send off your kid to college, or maybe now you have enough money to have 4 dinners a month with your family, right? Instead of being
Mm-hmm.
on that tight budget, like bettering your lifestyle will allow you to have connection and spend more quality time with the people that you love and care about. And when it comes to this COVID that happened, I felt like people are going to appreciate relationships, right?
Yeah, like this, like I feel like that's one of the biggest keys, especially not just in business but in life, is like that, to always be aware of what you're doing for people, not as like a kind of social conscious way of like to say like, oh, we got to be very spiritually minded in some kind of way, but always just thinking about how you're affecting someone in some way. Because I always say, like, I always think about how words affect people, and like even as a kid, just being like, oh, I knew my words. If you say something a certain way, you're gonna hurt someone in a certain way. And I think I always think about like that is one of the biggest keys in life, is just understanding people. I think that's like the biggest thing, because that goes past business. That goes past like just your job, because then like teaches you how to interact with someone that you're interested in, things, interact with like the bill inspector, teaches you how to interact with family, with job members, like even if you go to grab a cup of coffee at the place, that like treat the barista right. Like I think that's such a thing, is to be people minded and just treat everybody such a nice way. I always hated hearing about rich people treating the help so terrible.
Yeah. I mean, and ultimately, like I think one of the things that we have to realize, it's like yeah, obviously, like money, doesn't make people. Money just makes you more what you already are, right?
Hmm.
Regardless of where you come from, right? Regardless of your race or gender, right? Money just makes you more of what you already are, right? So
Hmm.
I feel like yeah, you're right, and like that's the reason, honestly, why like Disneyland is so successful, right? Because Walt basically build a place where it says, hey, like, you enter these doors, I promise you there's nothing but happiness and joy, and you're going to spend time with people you love, and we're going to put a smile on your face. And but regardless, if you actually watch his actual documentary of the type of person he was, the reason why he had so many employees and people that were loyal to him is because some of his, all of his staff was just basically like, he just had a way of making everybody feel special, making them feel
Hmm.
like they were, at the right place, that they made a good decision by embarking with him in this journey called Disneyland or Disney World, right? So
Hmm.
no matter what, he was always approachable. He was always friendly, right? And
Hmm.
then he was that person to the point where he created a park, right, where
Hmm.
everyone that comes in there is just, you're like excited on the way, you're excited when you're going into those doors, right? And then
Hmm.
just ultimately just pretty much your whole day there is just basically predicated upon you just being happy, you know,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
building that connection. So I definitely feel like, yeah, money just makes you more. And of course, there's going to be opposite stories on, how people have used money just for other ways, right? But,
Hmm.
I like to think that, we are, as millennials, like we have the ability to go out there now and really make a name for ourselves. I feel like jobs are gonna honestly be kind of like old school. Like, you know, like they're not gonna be what they were. Like, we're not gonna go back to like you know, like now we have like manufacturers. Like, people don't go and they're not like physically like sewing or like, you know, just doing all these things that they like factory jobs that they would do. I mean, there still are, but it's more industrialized, right? Where you have like so many
Hmm.
machines and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
feel like our era, it's really more about just, you know, making a difference, building with people, finding connections, but not doing it in a way where you're going to be in a cubicle, because
Hmm.
that kind of just limits yourself. You know, even when I was saying like when I'm working with people and I'm training people, I want to get to know what their talent is, you know, because
Hmm.
when you're at a cubicle, it's kind of hard for someone to get to know you. It's kind of hard for someone to know that, hey man, you have amazing drawing skills, or hey, you
Hmm.
know, you're so great at math, or hey, I didn't know you play guitar. When you're stuck at a cubicle for 8 hours and there's 300 other people in cubicles on a customer service building, it
Hmm.
leaves very little time for creativity. It leaves very little time for, you know, like you kind of have to
Hmm.
pick what you want to do on the weekend. You want to do a hobby, or do you want to spend time with your family? Because sometimes your hobby may be running, and your whole family's not going to want to go run with you on the weekend, you know.
Yeah, it's a
They're
little
like, no, we
difficult.
want to go here, we want to go there. So I feel like our generation really has the ability to really uh, you know, take a step back, find what your talent is, and say, okay, this is the business that we're in. Let's see how, or what, this is what you can bring to the table so we can build. And you know, versus when you come to a job, they ask you like, oh, so what are your strengths? And then you're like at a
Hmm.
computer typing for 8 hours. That's like, I
Yeah.
didn't say that was my strength, but okay, you know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
that's what I feel, our generation, we owe it to the future generation to get out of these I call them like prison jobs, because they're just
Yeah.
every day.
Mhm. And like with that too, is there anything, because I know you obviously interview people and you have people that come work for you. Is there anything specific that you always ask them? Because I always ask that, like that's my number one question I ask them is like, hey, what do you want to do? Like before I even like employ someone, or like before we even look to employ someone, is like, hey, what do you really want to
Mm-hmm.
do? Because I always think people always like when they go to a job, like they're just doing it because they want the money. And I always want to know, are you going to stay here and be happy at the job or not? So I was curious, like with you, because I know you vet them. There's like a whole process, and you know sometimes there's outliers that fall in the crack. But is there anything that you ask people, or like you look in people before going into like business with them, or like helping them, or is it just like I'm just gonna help them no matter what?
No, for me, the biggest thing when I interview someone, um, I always make it a goal, even if it's not like, because you can never really know a person on the first interview, right? They're
Hmm.
nervous. They're
Yeah.
probably gonna tell you what you want to hear. So, my goal is always to build a relationship with them, because my ultimate goal is to find out. And I ask in the first interview if they're comfortable enough to disclose it, then oh, that's awesome. But if they're not, then it's you know, by all means, it's cool too. But ultimately, I want to know, like, what do you actually want to do? What's your passion? So if I have
Hmm.
somebody that tells me, you know, I want to start a podcast, that's my passion. Awesome. Obviously, you're not doing that right now because it's obviously not going to pay the bills, but at some point, you want to be able to do that full time. Awesome.
Hmm.
So obviously, I tell them, if there's a way that I can teach you how to make enough money where in the next 3 to 5 years, you would have a substantial amount of money where if you wanted to make a lateral business transition,
Hmm.
right, and be able to fund your own podcast, is
Yeah.
that something that you would be willing to would you be interested? Because ultimately now they know, hey man, I can make this much money, but now they're working towards a goal. They're not really working, you
Hmm.
know, towards the business. Now they're like, okay, so because I'm like, you could be at, you know, Amazon for 5 years and I can guarantee you the next 5 years after that, they're going to be the same.
You're still gonna
like
be at
maybe,
Amazon.
maybe about $1 raise, here and there, maybe a little company party, but like that's
Yeah,
about it. Like they're not gonna give you, you know, a $20,000 raise, right?
yeah. They're not giving you stock
I
options.
say, hey, you know what? And I do hire people in the beginning part time. So I say, hey, keep your job, you know, do just like any business. Start this like a side hustle until you get
Hmm.
fully licensed. And most of the people that I work with, once you're actually in the business full time, like the average broker, makes a little bit over 10,000 a month, right? So if you can literally learn how to live on 5,000 and save 5,000, that's great, because
Yeah.
then now you have an action plan. Now you're like, if I can save 5,000, if I make $10,000 a month and I live below my means for the next 3 years and I save $5,000 a month, right? For the next 3 years, and I actually invested where I'm going to get a good rate of return. I actually open up an investment account, not a CD at the bank. I'm talking about an actual investment, right? So, okay, so I will have, in this, such and such years, I'm going to have available to me in 5 years, $200,000. Would that be enough to start your podcast? Yes. So now when they're working with me, but they're working with me to get to where they want to go.
Hmm.
Because unfortunately, a job, it's just not going to happen. You're going to be there for
Yeah.
40 years. And their promise for you is we'll take care of you when your back don't work no more.
Hmm. Yeah. Like I always think about.
And then that's if they don't get rid of you
Yeah,
before you're ready to
exactly.
retire.
Yeah, like that's where
So
that's
what
where
sounds like
like
a higher risk,
yeah, it's like the
you
thing
know?
like the whole thing with like especially with us being taught, you're not always taught to be the worker and never to be the employer. It's like yeah, like you are at the mercy of this employer forever. Like you've essentially signed yourself to be his employee and stuff like that. That's so great though because you're helping a lot of people
Exactly. So
in
it's
that
like
way.
my business is not just, oh, I do financial services. You want to come and sell insurance, or you want to come do a home loan? No, no, no. Let's find out
Hmm.
what do you want to do. I've had people that say, hey, I've always had a passion for cutting hair. I really just at some point want to open my own hair salon. How much money would you need? Oh, well, I think I'd need about $100,000. Okay, so let's take a look at your licenses. Let's take a look. The average broker in our company, and when I mean average, it means like the barrel, like meaning like
Hmm.
they're not really working. It's already like their business kind of, and it's up to you, right, how much money you want to make. But like the average broker with us earns about $160,000 a year, which is like way more than a job anyways, right? But
Hmm.
if a
Yeah.
job if we can program our minds that a job is going to pay us $4,000 bring home, and we're like 2,000 for the rent, 2,000 to live, and 2,000 for the bills and maybe a vacation. If you can program your mind that when you're making $160,000 a year, and if you could just program your mind like, hey, I'm gonna live on 5,000 no matter how much I make, and I'm not gonna spend it. I'm gonna get advice from the right people. I'm gonna open an investment that's gonna pay me a good rate of return, and in 5 years I'm gonna turn around and that account's gonna have $300,000, or it's gonna have $100,000. At
Hmm.
that point, when you say I want to start a business, you have options,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah,
you have options. So a 5 year run, I'm like, dude, you're young. How old are you going to be in 5 years? I guarantee you, if
exactly.
you don't have a plan, you're going to be right where you are in the next 5 years.
Yeah. Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's why I say that I help myself by helping others, because there's so many
Hmm.
people in my business that their ultimate goal is to do something else. Hey, I
Hmm.
like to do beats. I like music, or I like cooking, or I want to open my
Hmm.
hair salon, or I want to have my own podcast, right? And whatever
Yeah.
the dream is, it's never impossible, but unfortunately, it's not free.
Yeah.
So and your job is it's not like you're going to go up to your boss and say, hey, so what about like $1,000 a month raise a month, because I'm trying to start my own business. So if you could pay me an extra $1,000 a month, I promise I'm not going to touch them, because these are going into my
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. I'm
It's just
getting
not going
ready
to
to
happen.
leave you, so pay me more money. I would
Yeah,
appreciate that.
exactly. So it's not going to happen. So
Yeah,
you got to go
no.
out there and do it for yourself. That's why I say, you really have to come in with an open mind, because I meet people sometimes that tell me, hey, well, this isn't for me. And I go, okay, well, if it's not for you, then you just have to find another vehicle. That's it, right?
Hmm.
But if you're trying to find another vehicle, and you're trying to go back to school, I guarantee you that's not that
Yeah,
that's
that's
not
just costing you more money.
yeah, like it's not gonna bring you security at the end of the day. Like, you have people with degrees that are working at a completely different job related to their degree,
Yeah.
and ultimately, like, it's just like, I hear people all the time and I go, no. Like, I hear people say, oh, I'm gonna go back to school and I'm gonna get my master's. I'm like, dude, unless you're becoming a doctor
Hmm.
or
A
like a
lawyer.
scientist, I'm not
Yeah.
rooting for you, because
Yeah.
like, if you're telling me you're going back to school, to do XYZ, I'm gonna go get my degree, a bachelor's in business. I'm like, dude, you're literally going back to study theory. By the time you realize, you can be old, you
Yeah.
can have a lot of money, and you're still not gonna have a business.
Yeah. I
That
always.
doesn't mean like you graduate and you're like, oh, here's your business, like, no.
Hmm. Yeah, I always
So
think about that with school. Like, I always think about the ones that are like, I'm gonna take an art history degree, but they're like, but I don't like teaching. I was like, well, that's the only thing you can really use your art history degree for, is like
exactly.
teaching, or like if you become an appraiser. But then that, like, there's so many things behind that. I understand school is important. Like, trust me, I understand. I have education a little bit and like stuff and stuff, so and so, and I know, like, like self knowledge and self improvement that requires knowledge. And but like sometimes people forget that, like, we live in a time that, like, you can have everything like on your phone. Like, your phone, you can get, like, you can listen to a podcast by a billionaire, or you can listen,
Yeah,
you can like,
definitely.
you can find out, hey, what was his ideas for this, like, hey, what was the stock options on this. And like, with that, I was curious with investments. You're
Like,
talking about,
literally, like, yeah, there's
you were saying
options.
investments. Yeah, like, are you like using, are you like, so then, is that like day trading or stock trading when you talk about investments, or is that like
No.
you're just putting it into like a Roth IRA, or like some kind of, like, just a fund?
Yeah. So there's I guess there's a misconception when it comes to investments.
Hmm.
A lot of people, when they hear the word investments or they hear like the market, they think stocks, right?
Hmm.
So there are professional day traders, right?
Yeah.
That what they do is basically analyze stocks, right? And then
Hmm.
you have mutual funds, which is different, and then you have CDs, which are different,
Hmm.
right? So it's just kind of like people say, well, I don't put my money in the stock market because the stock market is doing bad. No, whatever stock you're looking at is doing bad. But it's there's so
Yeah.
many companies right now that are making so much money. Like Amazon stock is not doing bad.
No.
CVS is not doing bad. Walmart is not doing bad. Costco is not doing bad. There's like there's a balance within the market. It balances itself out, So when I'm saying an investment, I'm talking about an actual investment, which is a mutual fund account. They're called portfolios, and in that
Hmm.
mutual fund account, there's over 300 companies that
Hmm.
compose that portfolio. So, for
Yeah.
example, if you're going to give $100, instead of giving $100 to Coca-Cola, you're
Hmm.
going to give $100 to these 300 companies, and then that $100 is split like 50 cents for everyone.
Hmm. Yeah.
So if one of the companies does really bad, then you lose 50 cents. But then because there's another company that's doing remarkably well, you just gain $3. So a
Hmm.
mutual fund is just basically a portfolio of companies that balance themselves out based on the economy. So like if it's doing
Hmm.
good or bad, right? And people, like, I always hear people like, oh, I lost money. I'm like, well, you're probably like on your
The
app
wrong portfolio.
buying these things, right? You're not buying mutual funds, you're buying stocks. Like, and that's
Yeah.
completely different, right? So I
Hmm.
would never, and we don't put people's investments in stocks. We put them into mutual funds, which are monitored and ran by the FINRA department of securities, right? This is
Hmm.
the actual global economy of the United States. It's not like you're investing into a particular company. So
Mm-hmm.
historically, the market and when it comes to mutual funds, historically the market has always paid an average over a 10% rate of return, which is crazy. A lot of people are like, and that's why when you go to the bank, they offer you like, oh, if you open a CD with $10,000, we'll give you a 3%. And that's
Mm-hmm.
because they know that whatever mutual funds they're going to use to put that CD in, it's always going to outperform the 3%. It'll be like 10%. Last year my mutual funds paid me 18%. That's unheard of. But that's
Yeah.
because when you have the proper licensing and the proper advisors, instead of the bank keeping 18%, no, I'm keeping the 18%,
Yeah.
right? So, and that's the biggest misconception when I hear people talk about like, oh, I have stocks or I'm like, no, you have to have mutual funds. Like if you want to create wealth, you need to have mutual funds, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
our economy's back is dependent on those mutual funds and those portfolios, basically. So that's where you want your money to go.
Yeah.
You get to pick, but yeah, and it's the best way to create wealth. If you've never heard of the rule of 72, I'll let you do a little research on that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really the biggest. You don't even have to retire when you're 65. If you start investing into a mutual fund when you're 18, you can retire when you're 40, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these are powerful concepts that I'm like, instead of getting that bottle service for $2,000, I'm like,
Yeah.
let me show you how much money, because when we're young, we spend the most money,
Mm-hmm.
like if you just pay yourself, 5 to 10% of what you make every month on a 10 to 20 year, investment, how much money you would have. And it just blows people away. and
Mm-hmm.
and that's how investors make that's like the true way to make money, because that's when interest starts working for you.
Mm-hmm.
You have a certain amount of money invested, you don't even have to work, it's earning a crazy rate of return, and then it's just and without even touching the principal, you're living off of the interest of your money. That is like literally what billionaires do. Their whole point of making money is not to make money to go buy something. They just want to reinvest it back into the mutual fund, the stock market, and all they want is to earn crazy rate of returns, 18, 20, whatever the market pays, they're getting the full jits of it. And
Mm-hmm.
when you have $1 million and you're getting $1 million in an investment, generates, if you have $1 million and you invest it into an investment at a 10% rate of return, that $1 million, without you having to touch the principal, will generate $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
So you would never touch the $1 million, and you would be literally getting a check every year for 100,000,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
eventually that money is going to grow, right? So that check goes from 100, 115,000, as the market grows. Now your million is, getting close to 2 million. So that's $200,000 a year in
Mm-hmm.
passive income that you're not working zero to do anything. It's just because it's invested in the proper vehicle at a
Mm-hmm.
10% rate of return. It gives you $200,000. It's pretty
Yeah.
crazy, huh?
That's
If you have
interesting.
5 million generates a $500,000 income a year without touching the principal.
Mm-hmm.
Works for me.
Yeah,
So I'm like,
exactly.
hey,
Exactly.
I'm like, so that's kind of like ultimately the true businessman is an investor. That's why Warren Buffett is the number one, on top three wealthiest people on the planet. Because Warren Buffett doesn't own Pizza Hut. He doesn't own Amazon. This guy puts all his money back into the market and lives off of the interest that it is accumulated, and he is doing perfectly fine through every recession you could think of. He's really
Yeah.
old, but no matter what, he's still making a lot of money, right? So ultimately, the market is the true businessman, like, which is Warren Buffett, and I think forget the name of the other guy, but Warren Buffett is pretty much known as like the king of investments.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
has crazy portfolios. right? So that's like really like what does Warren Buffett do? Like, does he own stuff? No, he doesn't own stuff. He owns mutual funds. That's what he does, right?
Yeah,
He
he owns
doesn't
like
have
a dividends and he
like
just
the how like the Warren Buffett restaurant, or like no. He like literally he's
mhm.
like, I want all my money. Obviously he has properties, but
Yeah.
out of that, like you don't hear like, oh, Warren Buffett opened up, a tire shop, or like a Costco, or you know what I'm saying, or he owns
Mhm.
5 Costco's. Like, no, this guy's like, all my money back into the economy. I'm living out of the rate of return that it's doing, and that's what he does. Like, once you get to that level, you're done. I'm like, the
Yeah.
investor world is crazy. People do it through properties, but investing in the market, like, you have no overhead. You're just dumping in your money and getting that rate of return back, and that's what he does. So he's like a billionaire.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
He's given like a lot of his money away too because like it's crazy. Yeah, because he's on a whole nother level of like how he
Yeah, but
makes
you
so
actually
much
really
money.
think about what he actually does. Like, you're like,
Hmm.
what does he actually do? Like, when people think about Bill Gates, they think like Apple, right?
Yeah, I think
They're
that's
like,
Microsoft. Yeah.
yeah, like, yeah, Bill Gates. And what's that? I'm sorry, what was that?
That's Jobs. Jobs is Apple.
Yeah, right. And then you're like thinking like, hey, okay, like you kind of find like the product that they're related to, but when you think Warren Buffett, you're like, what can I relate this guy to? Like, what does he actually own? Like, what does he actually do? Oh, he does investments. Ah, okay, got it, right? So he like all his financial wealth is coming from being an investor in the global economy. Not like, he's not known like, oh, he has 30 houses, or he has like this, like
Mhm.
like when it comes to his product, his business is investments. That is
Yeah.
literally what it is. So I feel
Yeah.
like, once you start, I think like once you start making over 300,000, I think, like, people should be ready to move into the next chapter, which
Yeah.
is just making your money work for you.
Yeah. What do you think is the sweet spot though for like for money in your way because you do a lot of financial advising? What do you think is the sweet spot for like, all right, I'm making this amount of money, like I should be good at this part at like this amount of level, like this amount of money coming in every year.
Like, you're saying stability. I mean,
Yeah,
because
like
honestly, like, honestly, for me, I feel like it's not about wealth. It's about how you manage your money, right?
mm, mhm,
So, there's people that are not money motivated, meaning that, hey, man, they don't want to buy the, McLaren. They don't want to
mhm,
buy the Maserati. So, for them, they can care less, how much money they make. But I feel like, I feel that at least the standard for people to live a decent life, I think people should not be making less than $10,000 a month. That should be like what, because honestly, like, if you are making $50,000 a year after taxes, you're pretty much making $35,000 net.
yeah,
And unless you have a combined income, it's going to be very hard for you to, buy the dream house, or, do the small things, like be able to pay off for your kids' college, like, and the average job is 50,000, right? A
mhm,
year. So I think, like, if you make, 10,000 a month, you have to at least be making over $120,000 a year to live comfortably and be able to have options on the schools, that just simple life options, like where you want to send your kids to elementary school. You know what I'm saying? Like, have
mhm,
access to bigger, better programs. But when you're like pretty much making less than $100,000 a year, it's a little bit difficult, to have those options. So I think 10,000 for me is the bare minimum that a person should make, because that gives you the ability to, not be married to your job, not be married to your business, not be married to, having to just, be, settling. Like if you're making 10,000, you can afford a $4,000 mortgage, live in a great house, and then keep
Mhm.
your expenses below 2,000,
Yeah.
right? But when you make 5,000, do you think your mortgage is going to be $4,000?
Nah.
Like, your family needs to eat. They eat every day. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
so it's like 10,000 would be the minimum, and I think a job is definitely just not going to offer that. And if it does, be ready to be married to the job, not to your family. So only a true entrepreneur can really make that happen. And it takes teamship, whether it's a partner, whether it's your spouse, maybe a best friend, and then
Hmm.
eventually it's going to take a team, right? It's going to take a team. Like
Yeah.
Pitbull actually said that himself. He was like, a lot of people interview me and ask me about like, oh, like my career and how am I successful? And I'm just like a reggaeton singer and now I'm doing this and that. And he goes, I'm kind of just the face of everything that happens behind the scene. He's like, I literally have a team of 100 people. He's like, 100 people that if they were gone, like I would have no idea like how to do things myself. Right. And
Hmm.
again, it comes to finding, oh, what's your talent? Okay, you can bring this to the table. Okay, oh, you're good at this. Okay, but they're all working towards a goal, right? But and he was just like saying like a lot of people think like it's me, but honestly, like he goes, singing can only take you so far if you don't have the right team.
Hmm.
And he's like, and if you want fast money, you're gonna get it, but that's how fast is gonna leave. Fast money leaves quick. Hard work, earned money, you think about it. You're like,
Hmm.
man, it cost me this much to make $10,000, right?
Hmm.
Am I really going to go blow it on, a Vegas trip? You know? So, and I feel like once you even start making your 10,000, your next goal should literally be like, I need to save liquid cash. Because once you have liquid cash, then credit is not an issue.
Hmm.
So I'm like, your goal should be to like, you start at 10,000 and then once you start hitting 20,000 a month, then you have to go 50-50. Save
Hmm.
10,000, live on 10,000, and if you can, still like kind of have the mentality, because just because you're making 20,000 a month doesn't mean you got it going on. Like you
Yeah.
have to like got it going on would be like, okay, what's impressive is this. A guy makes 10,000 or $20,000 a month. That's impressive. But what's more impressive is if in the next 3 to 5 years, this guy shows you his savings account, not savings, but his investments, because nobody puts money in savings, right?
Yeah. It's very
Um,
rare.
and says, look at my account. I got $250,000 saved. That's impressive. That's impressive. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Because people can get so carried away with what's showing you what they drive or what they or the house or whatnot, but they forget that the ultimate goal is financial independence, not chasing the mighty dollar. So until you have
Hmm.
enough liquid cash to where you don't have to worry about what's going to happen in 2021, you don't have to be a millionaire, but at least like if you have a couple $100,000 saving in your bank account, I
Yeah.
think you're good. I mean, ultimately, like, your goal after that, once you start making more money, all I could say is you could be making $50,000 a month. And, my coach that personally mentors me, he makes about
Hmm.
$50,000 to $60,000 a month. And this guy lives literally like he saves, like he literally will invest like out of the 50,000, he will invest $40,000 a month and live on 10,000. And if you saw this guy walking in the street, and you would see his bank account, you'd be like, "Oh, this guy's broke. He has only $10,000 in his checkings, right?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "I only keep $10,000 in my checking because you need obviously have money in your bank account."
Yeah.
But like if he makes, every single month, and this is passive income, and that's what I'm saying. Like once you build a big business, he doesn't care what happens tomorrow. He's getting paid, $50,000 to $60,000 a month, and from
Hmm.
there, he's getting the whole 40 or 50,000, putting it into an investment, which are like the mutual funds, and he lives off 10,000.
Hmm.
And he's been doing this for like for 20 years. It's crazy. Like you wouldn't think, right? You would think
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, like and obviously I'm not going to say you're going to live broke, but if you have 10,000 coming in every month passive, like in his head, he's like, I only have $10,000 a month. And I
Mm-hmm.
ask him, like, that's when you start picking like mentor's brain. Like, what's your goal? He's like, I want to have 10 million saved cash. I'm like, okay. He's like, once I do that, he's like, I never have to worry about money because then I can live off of the interest of my money. And it's going to take time. It's probably going to take me 20 to 30 years. He's like, but ultimately, I'm changing my family tree. Like, they're never going to have to, do this, do that. So,
Yeah.
um, I think overall discipline is key to everything that you're gonna do when it comes to money. Because
Mm-hmm.
knowing us, like our generation, the raza, you make
Mm-hmm.
10,000, you'll be like,
It's
dude,
time to ball out. Like you getting
it's
that
time
new
to roll
car.
out. Let's go to Big Bear. Let's rent that
Yeah.
$5,000 for a 3 weekend cabin. So discipline, I think, is so hard in the beginning because when you're not used to having things like that, you
Mm-hmm.
just feel like you're all over the place. You want to take it all, but like my coach says, like, dude, if you don't have the discipline to save, that's why celebrities and millionaires go broke.
Mm-hmm.
Because literally, if you don't have the discipline, you could literally lose your money overnight on things. And when it's hard, but he's like, but when it's hard earned money, he goes, you think about it. You're like, because like my coach tells me, like, people always ask him like, oh, well, well, what's your next car? Because he likes cars. But
Yeah.
like for his income, you're not gonna go to his house and find like 5 cars. Like he has one car, and yeah, he has a couple cars, but he's like, I can literally go out and buy 5 cars cash, whichever car. But
Yeah.
he's like, I didn't do it for the cars. He's like, I
Mm-hmm.
want to be wealthy because I want to have like permanent financial security, not
Mm-hmm.
temporary.
Yeah.
That's why you'll find, that the celebrity found himself selling his Phantom or selling this or selling that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and that's when, if people are money motivated or driven by materialistic, you're just trying to buy something to impress something. He's like, I'm trying to impress myself. He goes, I want to not have to worry about money. He's like, yeah, I can go out right now and go buy me a Ferrari and go buy this and buy that. He goes, but he goes, that's not gonna like give me financial security for my family,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're starting from the bottom. Like if you were like born rich and your family has like millions of dollars,
Yeah, that's a different
I'd be
story.
driving a Ferrari on my way to freaking kindergarten. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Uh-huh.
But if you're starting from scratch and you want to really change your tree and you want it to be a permanent success, you're gonna have to be disciplined for at least 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have to
Yeah.
be like, nope, like nope, nope. Like it sounds. I mean, I'm not saying you're not gonna like splurge yourself, but
Yeah.
if you're not disciplined, you're gonna run out of money
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah. I think some people are afraid of that too, is like discipline and be like and that like that that thought of like, oh, you mean I have to wait a while before I can get something? Like I think some people
Instant
are so
gratification.
yeah, people are like people want that. It's so great.
Exactly.
Hmm. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sitting down with me. I
Yeah,
really
definitely.
enjoyed it. Yeah, and if they're looking for someone to watch on a podcast, this is definitely one of them. Considering you just gave so much knowledge on everything going down there, is there any way that they can reach you? They're saying, "Hey, I wanna invest a mutual fund with you." Is there any way that you want to plug anything you want to say to anybody?
Well, we're definitely looking for people that like I said, that are willing to take a shot on themselves, willing
Hmm.
to just kind of have that little inspiration to kind of dream again, right? And I'm pretty much talking to the guy out of college thinking like, hey man, should I go get that Amazon job to get me through? I'm talking to the single mom that's thinking like, is it too late for me to start a business? Whatever it is that you want at the end of the day, right? We can help you get there with a little discipline. At least working with me, you're going to be working with me, but also working for yourself, and knowing that in the back of in the back of your mind, you're like, I know that 3 years from now, I'm going to be able to branch off and do what I want to do. Right. Because the job's not going to really ever give you that. But yeah, I can definitely, give you my information, and just if they have any questions, and we're fully licensed, appointed, in the state of California, fully licensed, not like a new startup company, right?
Hmm.
But and like I said, I love working with middle income, average people, right?
Hmm.
Particularly like the Hispanic community, the brown community, like whatever
Hmm.
it is, the people that need the more awareness, right?
Yeah, that's what this
That's
is
really who we're
about.
looking for.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
who we're looking for. And then we welcome like even DACA. A lot of I know a lot of people out there, right, that have like the DACA program. We are able to license them as well, because we are a
Hmm.
legitimate company. So ultimately, we bring opportunity to those who are really just looking. If you're looking and that's you, and you're thinking, hey, maybe I can make some extra money on the side, or maybe a whole career change. Like that's what I'm here for.
Gotcha. Well, awesome. Yeah, like that's what this whole podcast is about too. Is just definitely showing the minority that you can be a majority business owner. You don't have to be like the worker. You can be the employer. You can own the company.
Yeah, and I mean, and the reason why I actually mentioned DACA is because I'm actually a DACA recipient myself. So, I actually had to
Mm,
work my way up through school to be like, hey, let me bring value to this country, right? So I could, get me that work permit, and then like I slowly turned that work permit into a business opportunity because I was like, yeah, I'm glad that I got this work permit, but I don't want it to, work for this country for the rest of my life, right?
mm,
So, if you're that guy, definitely, if you ever thought about starting a business, like, you do have the ability to get state license. It doesn't put any restrictions on your license, and that's obviously geared to like the immigrant community, right? Like myself, coming from parents that migrated to this country. And that's really what I love about my business. There's really no exclusions. The only person that would be stopping you from believing in yourself is you, right?
mm.
But rather than that, pretty much anyone welcome.
Awesome, awesome. So you don't have any socials. You don't want to plug anything. You're like,
What it's social, like a social media, you're saying, or
yeah, yeah. Like you don't. Yeah.
like if I have a Instagram?
Well, yeah. Well, for them to reach out to you, I know we'll link all that stuff for sure when you give us the information.
Oh, okay.
We'll link all
Yeah,
that
no, so
stuff too.
definitely my social media, I have an Instagram and a Facebook, but my Instagram name is it's Edna, which is EDNA underscore, and then Bianey, which is BIANEY. If you can help me, obviously link that on the bottom description. I do answer messages on Messenger or Facebook all the time. It's actually my biggest way of communicating with friends, clients, everything. So I have a pretty decent platform when it comes to that. Definitely, and I obviously have my email. But if you just reach me through social media, I think it's probably like the
Hmm.
easiest way because once there, I can like shoot you like a phone number or an address, right?
Hmm.
But definitely, if you can link obviously that below, that probably
Yeah, of
help. And I do
course.
have a public Instagram, so you don't have to request me, right? You don't have to
Hmm.
friend me. You can just message
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
and I will definitely get back to you. I'll get back to you literally within a business day at max because I'm constantly checking my messages, and my platform is basically shows a little bit about what I do, who I am, my business and partners, and also you'll get to meet some of the people that I work with
Hmm.
in my business. I showcase them all the time, right, on
Hmm.
my platform. But that's pretty much it. Yeah, Facebook or Instagram.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you so much, and hope you have a good rest of your day, and keep
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
helping.
I really appreciate your time.